Can you win your second 500 today?
Well, we got a good shot at it. Got a good race car. I think it's going to be okay. We got a good engine in it, but a little wind today, a little exciting.
Have you ever wondered what it's really like to carry the weight of a NASCAR legend's legacy? Dale Earnhardt, known as the Intimidator, was more than just a racer. He was an icon. But behind the spotlight, his wife Teresa Earnhardt is finally revealing the truth we all suspected, but never knew. Have you ever wondered what's really been going on behind the scenes of NASCAR's most iconic family? Dale Earnhardt was a symbol of speed, grit, and determination, but there's a deeper story to be told. Now, at 66, his wife Teresa Earnhardt is finally revealing what we all suspected but never knew. When he first started his career, Dale Earnhardt wasn't just a great racer. He was a force in NASCAR. His fierce racing style, unwavering drive, and unmatched skill on the track made him an icon whose name will always be linked to the sport. People who backed the Intimidator didn't know how hard it was for him or what he gave up for others. His wife, Teresa Earnhardt, has always been there for him without saying a word. Since he died, she has taken on the huge duty of running the Earnhardt legacy. For years, Teresa stayed out of the spotlight and kept to herself. But now that she is 66, she is breaking her silence and giving the world a rare look into their life together. She is revealing the truth that allies and people from the outside have long thought about but never fully understood. Her statement shows the emotional problems and personal fights Dale had off the course, as well as the stress of carrying on the family name and how that affected their relationship. We will see a part of Dale's life through Teresa's story that we haven't seen before. This will change how we see the Earnhardt family and their path. He was more than just a NASCAR driver. Dale Earnhardt left a legacy that lives on. Dale was called the Intimidator because of how brave and aggressively he drove from the start of his career. He is different from all the other drivers in the field because he is willing to try new things, take risks, and work in tight areas. People really liked him because he fought for every inch of the track instead of just running. Born in Kannapolis, North Carolina, Dale grew up in a racing family. Ralph Earnhardt, Dale's father, was a famous driver, and it was clear from a young age that Dale would also become a driver. Still, the way to success was not easy. Before Dale could finally go to NASCAR, he had to show what he could do on the nearby racetracks. He worked for it. He didn't just get there. Dale Earnhardt won his first NASCAR Winston Cup championship in 1980. That was just the beginning for him. Over the next 20 years, he won 7 wins, which tied the record with Richard Petty and Jimmy Johnson. Even though he was the best golfer ever, it was his brave and sometimes controversial behavior off the course that made him a hero. He wasn't afraid to break the rules, hit cars, or do things that other people wouldn't do. It wasn't just about Dale winning, it was also about conquering and making a point. People both liked and didn't like how tough he was when racing. Fans respected him for not hiding who he really was because he was tough, honest, and willing to do anything to win. But his enemies were afraid of him. Dale owned the track just by being there. He didn't just race. He was fast, tough, and determined to win at all costs, which is what NASCAR was all about. But on February 18, 2001, everything changed. The Daytona 500 was Dale's race. It was one of the most important events of the year. As the last runs were going on, something terrible happened. Dale hit the wall at a very high speed and lost one of the most famous things in the world. It was an instant shock. People who like NASCAR, other cars, and racing in general were shocked. Even though Dale's life was cut short in that moment, he had always seemed invincible. In NASCAR, his death marked the end of an era. Dale was more than just a driver. He was the sport itself. Fans and drivers alike were saddened by the death of someone who had made NASCAR what it is today. Still, his death changed the sport in important ways. Right away, NASCAR took steps to improve safety processes. This made the sport safer for future drivers. The Hans device, safer barriers, and other changes in car design were all directly based on what we learned from Dale's accident. Teresa Earnhardt, his wife, stepped up to run Dale Earnhardt Inc., the race business they had built together after he died. That wasn't an easy task. Teresa had a hard time balancing her own grief with her duties to carry on Dale's legacy. DEI kept getting better with her help, but carrying such a heavy load is never easy. And that's where we'll leave this part of the story, moving to the story of how Teresa Earnhardt has kept that legacy alive in ways that many fans didn't fully understand. Teresa Earnhardt was not only Dale Earnhardt's wife, but also an important part of his racing business. Teresa was involved in every part of Dale's work for a long time before he died too soon. She wasn't just watching from the sides, she was working behind the scenes to make sure Dale Earnhardt Inc., DEI, stayed on track with its finances and operations. She looked at NASCAR from a business point of view because she was in charge of everything, from sponsorships to team management. Somehow it's hard to imagine Dale's accomplishment reaching such heights without her help. But Teresa's participation in the racing scene was more than just a way for her to make money. It was also a way for Dale to get support. Between them, Teresa took care of things behind the scenes, while Dale focused on what he did best, which was racing. They had a good relationship. That's where she stayed through all of NASCAR's highs and lows, wins and losses. It was clear that she loved Dale, but it was also clear that she was loyal to the business they had started together. When Dale died during the 2001 Daytona 500, it shocked the racing world. She lost both her husband and the man she had known for years and worked hard to build a business with. To her surprise, she felt a strong duty to keep DEI running while dealing with her own loss. That wasn't easy either. People expected her to not only carry on Dale's work, but also run the business the way he would have, which came with its own set of problems. She had always been quiet, and after Dale died, the stress on Teresa only got worse. As she grieved for her husband, she also had to deal with the demands of the racing business and the hopes of his fans who only wanted his name to live on. Other than that, it was hard to deal with how the Earnhardt family worked together. Many saw her as the strict businessman who could save the company, but others didn't like the things she did, especially with her relationship with Dale Jr. When Dale died, Teresa was left to run the DEI. She wasn't just running a business, she was also protecting a brand. For NASCAR fans, the Earnhardt name meant more than just winning races. It meant a way of life. Teresa was told to make sure that what Dale had made didn't go away. That's when the pressure started to rise. Teresa was being questioned by the people the whole time. Some people praised her determination and will, while others were critical of how she handled Dale's memory. People had different opinions about her, especially when it came to her relationship with Dale Jr. A lot of people thought that Teresa's focus on work was making her and her son grow apart. They thought she was too controlling with DEI and had too much pride in the Earnhardt name. It was a big deal for the media to say that she was holding Dale Jr. back from succeeding in his own field. In fact, things were more complicated than that. Teresa could be seen as the bad guy in the story, but she made the choices she did because she wanted to save everything Dale had made. And even though she felt like everyone was against her, she was the one who kept DEI going. During the whole discussion, she had also lost a loved one. People did not always understand loss, though. Their view of her as a businesswoman instead of a wife who had lost her husband made things even harder. Over the years, Teresa's job at DEI has changed. She had to deal with a NASCAR scene that was changing quickly, and where bigger teams backed by corporations were beginning to take over. DEI used to be a family-run powerhouse, but now it was getting hard to keep up with the bigger teams. But Teresa kept going, knowing that the Earnhardt name had to remain. Many years ago, Teresa Earnhardt was very private, and she still keeps most of her problems from the public. But recently, at age 66, she broke her silence to talk about how hard it is for her to carry on without her husband, Dale Earnhardt. The news that Teresa told has caused a stir after years of silence. She used to be seen as the strict businesswoman who kept Dale's kingdom going, but now she's showing a side of herself that has been buried for a long time. In a rare moment of honesty, Teresa talked about how hard it was for her to keep the business going and deal with her own identity and loss after Dale's death. Teresa was the person who ran Dale Earnhardt Inc., DEI, and made sure that his memory lived on for many years. The public did not see, however, the constant pressure that came with keeping that heritage alive. It wasn't just about keeping the business going. It was also about Dale's reputation as NASCAR's best driver. Teresa said that all of this was taking a terrible toll on her emotions and mental health. She wasn't just running a business. She was also keeping a family's history alive. She was also having a hard time because she had just lost her husband. He had been her lifelong partner and business partner, helping her make choices and run the business. As soon as Dale died in 2001, it looked like the earth stopped turning. Teresa didn't want to stop, though. She had to stay ahead, make decisions, deal with the press, run a business that was built on Dale's image, and keep going. She did say recently, though, that staying in that position made her feel lonely and alone. As she dealt with her grief over her death, the constant pressure to make the best choices for the legacy was hard on her emotions. She wasn't just a businessman, she was also a widow trying to find her place in a world that had recently changed. And to do all of that while being seen by everyone? The task wasn't easy. With all the attention from the public, Teresa's situation got even more complicated. Both fans and critics saw her as the protector of Dale's memory, even though they had different ideas about how much it would hurt them emotionally. She chose to let everything run easily at DEI because it was the right thing to do for the guy she loved, not just for business. But that wasn't always how it was seen. People judged her and attacked her for either focusing too much on business or being too controlling. Teresa said that she felt like the whole world was on her shoulders and that it was hard not to feel alone when no one else was around. To balance her own sense of self with Dale's memory was one of the hardest things she had to do. Not only did she want to protect his memory, but she also had to figure out who she was without him. Dale had been her whole world, both emotionally and professionally. When he died, Teresa had to find her way through the space he had taken up. It wasn't just about running the business or dealing with what people thought of her. It was also about figuring out what to do next after losing everything she knew. Teresa thought that the emotional and mental toll wasn't just from the work she did for DEI every day. It was the constant conflict inside her, the search for peace while being pulled in many different ways. She was dealing with the death of Dale and had to make choices that would affect the business's future. She still felt the effects of her loss in every choice she made. It wasn't something that went away quickly. There were times when she felt torn between honoring Dale's vision for the family and supporting Dale Jr. in his own career. Teresa Earnhardt took on a huge duty when Dale Earnhardt died. She had to keep his legacy alive. Dale wasn't just a driver, he was an icon, a brand, and a voice of NASCAR's tough beginnings. Teresa's work to protect Dale's memory held on to the most important things he stood for and helped honor his name. She chose to trademark Dale's name and image to protect family interests and stop other people from making money off of his memory. For Teresa, this wasn't just a business choice, it was also a very personal one. Some people could see why Teresa had such a tight hold on the Earnhardt name. Dale's name was very valuable in business, and it had come to stand for race. For everything that had to do with Dale, she had to make sure that the name wasn't abused. At the same time, not everyone saw it that way. Some of Teresa's fans thought her actions were too controlling, and others asked her why she was trying to take over Dale's legacy. They thought that making trademarks on his name and picture made it harder for his fans to connect with the man they loved. They thought she was holding on too tight to Dale's memory and not letting others share in it. In fact, the truth was much more complicated than that. Teresa wasn't just trying to make money off of Dale's name, she was also protecting what he had made. The public's view of its stars and the atmosphere in NASCAR were both changing. Dale's legacy was more than just a list of wins. It showed who he was and how he changed the sport. It was Teresa's choice to protect his brand, which kept his story from getting watered down or lost. But that didn't stop other people from wondering what she was up to. These words were often used to describe Teresa: cold and calculating. More than not respecting what she did, they didn't always understand why she was acting the way she was. She wasn't just running a business, she was trying to protect a heritage. Fans and the press did not always treat her well, especially when it came to her job at Dale Earnhardt Inc., DEI. Running the business after Dale died wasn't just about making money, it was also about keeping Earnhardt's spirit. Many people thought Teresa's decisions were only about business and didn't take into account the emotional side of life. To them, she seemed far away and unapproachable. She focused too much on the bottom line and not enough on how the fans felt. But Teresa's most recent confessions show a different side of her. Because she was honest about the problems she was having, it was clear that the decisions she made were much bigger than what most people would have thought. Her business was worth a lot of money, so she had to deal with the loss of the man she loved at the same time. Not only did she want DEI to keep running, but she also wanted to hold on to something that had meant a lot to both of them. Her work as Earnhardt's brand manager was never just for money. She wanted to honor Dale's memory in a way that made sense to her. And that meant making decisions that neither her family nor most people didn't really like. Teresa was having emotional problems behind the scenes while she was trying to make business choices that would affect the direction of the company. She had to deal with her own grief over losing her husband while also running her business. Some people thought she was bossy, but she really just wanted to protect what Dale had built, both for the people who loved him and for herself. She wanted everyone who didn't know what Dale stood for to remember him. Still, the abuse she had to deal with wouldn't stop. People who didn't know her or the whole story formed opinions about her based on how the media portrayed her. Teresa was shown to be a cold, practical person who cared more about money than her husband's memory. But that couldn't have been further from the truth. The public is very interested in Teresa Earnhardt's latest comments about the mental and emotional toll of managing Dale Earnhardt's reputation. When fans finally saw the woman behind the public image of the businesswoman who kept DEI going, they felt sorry for her and understood. They learned that Teresa's decisions were not about control or making money, but about her own sadness and her duty to remember the man she loved. Because she was honest about the problems she faced, many of her fans saw a human side to her that they hadn't seen before. For years, she was seen as a strict and distant woman. But today, she was seen as a woman dealing with her own terrible loss, not just a widow running a racing business. But not all of the responses were positive. Some people who didn't like Teresa were still arguing about her goals. They thought she was being too bossy, especially when it came to managing her brand. Some supporters liked how open she was about her problems, but others were still skeptical and didn't know if her most recent comment was just an attempt to change people's minds. Still, it's clear that these findings have made her job more sensitive in new ways. They have told people that every story has more to it than meets the eye, especially when it comes to well-known people like Teresa, who have been under a lot of scrutiny. Teresa's admission also helps people understand how important Dale Earnhardt's legacy really is. It's easy to remember Dale's 7 championships, the legendary races, and his great image, but his legacy goes beyond those things. Dale and Teresa both made sacrifices for the sake of being the best in NASCAR, and sometimes that cost them family time, happiness, and their mental health. Teresa's words help make things clearer. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Hit the bell icon to stay updated, and click on the next video popping up on your screen. See you next time.